Hello, my name is Kfir Kimchi, and today we are going to talk about the insider threat and the changes of the cybersecurity risk due to the COVID-19. My name is Kfir Kimchi. I'm the CEO and co-founder of It's Mine. We created in the last 4 years what we call Beyond DLP, a solution that helps companies to protect companies' data in a completely different approach. Before It's Mine, I used to work as a security architect at Checkpoint, met with a lot of organizations, enterprises mainly across the world, from ITSE's large companies in India to companies in the US, from banks to military services and more. So today we see that data protection needs to be helped to any organization. So companies know that the data is becoming as precious as gold. When users access to our website, going to our services and provide us their private information, it is very clear today that the data does not belong to the company. It belongs to the individual, which means that we expect our users, our companies that we share the information with, to keep our data secured. Just like in the bank, we expect them to protect our money. So data today and the regulatory requirement us globally to change the way that we treat the company data. So we see that data is becoming more and more precious, but not only that, also we see that if 10 or 15 years ago, the data attacks were only to the largest companies, today we see that 58% of the SMB companies actually suffered from a data breach. And data breach could be either data that leaving the company or data loss, which is ransomware or next generation ransomware trying to harm the company's data or steal it or encrypt it and asking for ransom. So what have changed in the last couple of months due to COVID-19? First of all, we see in our customers the data is everywhere. There are no clear boundaries anymore. Companies sitting on-prem, in the cloud, on the Microsoft 365, and of course, people are working from home, sometimes with their home computer, connecting to the company's devices and using the company data to do their work. Companies needed to accelerate the movement to the cloud, and it's very delicate to change the way that users work with the company data. And that's why the data is in a higher risk. The methodology, when we thought that we have some control points, some boundaries, we well understand it today that it doesn't exist. So people are working from home with devices that are connected via routers that they might never change the password to, or even in the same device that they need to give the users to connect either from Zoom or to use his Fortnite application in order to make them work a little bit and stay out of trouble. So the device is no longer as controlled as it used to be. And employees need to work also from home. And unfortunately, what we are going to see in the 2020 and 2021 is employees that are leaving the company. The retention rate is expected to be between 5% to 10% more than we used to have in previous years, which means that it's becoming almost risk number one when employees leaving the company to take sensitive data with them. Today, we are talking about 87% of the users that leave the company taking sensitive data with them. Most of them are not malicious, they're not trying to steal from the company. But when we need to meet with regulatory requirement, it doesn't matter how the data left the company. And when the employees leaving the company because of the retention rate, because we needed to reduce the headcount, we understand that this become risk number one inside the company. So if we have 1,000 users and we have 10% retention rate and 87% of the users taking sensitive data with them, we are talking about 87 attacks that we have that for sure taking sensitive data from the company. It is much higher risk than any other advanced persistent attack that you might have on your systems. More than that, recent Boston University School of Medicine report showed that the amount of depression increased significantly in the US, and it's basically globally. When people are working from home, when people not used to work at home, and the kids are next to them, and they don't know whether they are going to leave the company in the next few months, the depression go higher. And when depression go higher, the risk of our data becoming higher. It's not only taking the company data, it's also creating sabotage on our data, deleting critical data, removing project for their own. All of this kind of information needs to be taken care of. People are less patient. People are less taking care of what they do. The risk of clicking on an email that they will never click inside their organization is going extremely higher. And when the devices that they open up the attacker control into their system, now they have a ransomware. They could easily encrypt our SharePoint online, our OneDrive, our on-prem file storages, and create a very large damage to the company. So when we are talking about the insider threat, we're basically separating it to three different vectors of attack. The first one is, of course, external attacker. But external attacker when they're sitting inside the organization. So a malware, a ransomware, they're trying to encrypt the company data or trying to steal the company data from the inside of the network. Employees that click on an email, click on a website, or a router that we could not install our endpoint device, our EDR solution on because it's unmanaged system. They're trying to encrypt, change, delete, or steal our company data. The second vector of attack is, of course, our employees. And our employees, it's a completely different vector of attack than the threat that's coming from the inside. Again, because they're using the same systems, the same endpoint agent, the endpoint device, it might be very confusing. But also for them, we are separating between two different vectors of attack. We have employees that just did a mistake. Employees, our critical employees, working with the most sensitive company data, doing their job, but they need our help to work in a more secured way. They need our guideline to know what they need to do, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. How can they be more careful and treat the company's important data in a different way? We need to help them to engage with them and to treat them, and we'll talk about it in a second. It's a completely different hat that we need to wear in order to handle them. And of course, we have the intentional employees. Employees that is about to leave the company, that know that they're not longer going to keep their job and trying to take company data before they leave. For these employees, first of all, we want them to know on a regular basis that it's going to be a bad idea to take the company data. And if they do, we need to have hard evidence against them. And when I mean hard evidence, I mean that we need to see exactly what they do. So again, when we are talking about the insider threat, it's just like in real life. Inside of the city, inside of a building, inside of a school, although we have a terror attack, we cannot use the same tools as we are using to protect our boundaries. So we cannot use the military tools in order to use a terror attack. We need a different approach. We need to engage our people. We need to be able to know when something bad is happening, and we need to be able to block or to take the right action against the user. But the different approach is like a police approach. It's not like a military service. We have to take a different hat, not the military officer, but the policeman. And a good policeman will be successful when we're giving the right KPIs and we're using the right tools in the right way, and we can be successful with the insider threat. So let's talk a little bit about what can be achieved. So one of the things that we created with its mind, and we believe that this is a methodology that any company should use, whether with our technology or with different technology, is the capability to track the company data everywhere. Tracking the company's data everywhere means that we have, every time that the file is being used, even beyond the company's boundaries, for the important data that we will have the capability to know about it. We will be able to protect the company data and to limit the use of the company data even beyond the company's boundaries on an unmanaged system with working with our third parties. As much as we can with third parties, manufacturers that we are using, we need to make sure that they could not use our data for unlimited amount of time. If we can, and we can limit the amount of time that our critical data sits outside, it's extremely important. But we need to remember all the time that in the end of it, data needs to be used by users. We cannot and we should not harm the way that people are working. We need to give them the capability to work seamlessly, but to be able to track our important data inside and beyond the company's boundaries. Second methodology that we recommend to use is the capabilities of sensors as close as possible to the data level. The sensors need to be smart sensors. We need the capabilities to know when we have a bad activity inside of our network and to react accordingly. So tracking the data everywhere means that when we have an important data or we have a deception data that we know that no one should access and no one should download, no one should encrypt, and no one should use outside of the company. If we are capable to know about the data, this data that it's being used, we will be able to know exactly what had happened once we have a data breach. We will be able to track down and to know where the data was used, and we will be able to understand what kind of more activities we had on that data. So thinking out of the box allows us to get notification about potential data breach and to be able to protect against it. And again, if we go back to the vectors of attack that we talked about before, when we have an external attacker that's trying to encrypt, change, delete, or steal the company data, we need to block them as soon as possible, whether using managed system or unmanaged system. When we have an employees, we need to work with our employees. We need to assist them. We need to make sure that we help them to avoid doing mistakes with tips, not with blocking, with giving them the concept of how they could share information more securely. We can use tools to make sure that the employees are using the data in a careful way, that they feel different when they're using the critical company data or application and when they're not. We need to centralize our data as much as we can. So data will not live outside of our central file storages, and it doesn't matter whether it's on-prem or in the cloud, and limit the amount of sensitive data that we have on the employees' devices. Because again, those employees' devices are very hard to control. The last piece is about the intentional data breach. We want to make sure that our employees think twice before they steal the company data. We need to train them. They need to know that we have the capabilities, that we are looking at what they're doing. We need to share with them, like in phishing. When we create in phishing campaigns, and that is a very known solutions that can be used, like KnowBe4 solution, for example, capabilities to when the user to share with the users fake emails, and when they're using these fake emails, to be able to educate them. It's important to do it in multiple functionalities as well. Do it on the company data level. That could give yet another capability to the company's security team to engage better with users. So if the users accessing or using data that they shouldn't, it's a great opportunity to educate them about what they allowed and not allowed to do, and to remind them that the security team is looking. So the employee, before they leave the company, they will think twice before they steal company data. But if they decide to take the company data, although they know that the company's security team is watching, we need to have hard evidence against them. And the capability should be not logs. We should be able to have a movie clip, a short video that will show us exactly what the user did. This information is extremely important to have for rogue employees, but it is critical to make sure that you do not harm the privacy of the entire employees during the process. We will definitely not recommend to record all your users all the time, but to do it proactively according to the company's risk is extremely important. So if we have an employee that is about to leave the company and took sensitive data with them, we need to have the capability to see exactly what they did and to share it with him using his manager or the HR, and decide what we should do with that guy, and to make sure that he return all the data that he took with him. In the end of it, when we are looking at data protection, in the data protection, we need to look at structured and unstructured data on files. That would be probably the worst data breach that we can have, because it's multiple information that is in one file. And most of the time, that's the way that the data breach will look like. But we also need to make sure that we protect our databases, the structured data. And the structured data is, again, it's most of the time during the use of the data. And if the file was created from it file, so if structured data became unstructured data, to be able to track it everywhere, inside and beyond the company's boundaries, and to protect it at rest, in motion, and in use. Don't do just one of them. So if you just do data at rest and not in motion and in use, it would be very easy to bypass the solution. So always think about the way the attackers think. Think about what will happen if you, as a user, will try to take the company data. You will try to be right before you leave the company, if you would like to take some of the presentations that you prepared. How can you make it harder for the employee, or even to remove completely the thoughts that it's okay to take this kind of information with him before they leave the company? By doing the protection at rest, in motion, and in use, but when needed and according to the risk, it will be easier to meet with the regulatory requirement and to protect the company data. So what we recommend as beyond DLP is to have a very easy implementation to make sure that the solution can give you value in hours, to be transparent on your users and to the IT. Because today, when employees working from home, we cannot implement many endpoint agents that will harm their work. We need to do it as transparent as possible, so no endpoint agent, no inline appliances inside of the network, and to be able to block and not just to detect, and of course to meet with regulatory requirement like at least traditional DLP. So that's basically it, what I wanted to discuss in this topic. I will be more than happy to have a further discussion, and also with Hernan and our team in Chile. You can have a discussion about that. They could show you share with you some more ideas and knowledge about the insider threat. But this is the most important topic for 2020 and 2021, and to make sure that when users are now sitting at home with a router that they haven't changed the password, with their kids they're sitting next to them and they are not focused in their job, to make sure that we help them to work in a secured way. If they decide to leave the company, to know what is allowed and what is not, and to have the capability to protect our company data everywhere. Thank you very much.